If you were to outline the characteristics of ineffective leaders, what would be the number one trait for you? Perhaps at one end, it's the leader who is the bully, who's a narcissist. And at the other end, it's the leader, and I actually struggle using the term leader because they're not really leaders, but it's the boss who is just ineffective, can't delegate, doesn't get things done. Just as effective leaders come in lots of shapes and sizes, so too do ineffective leaders. Now, there's a lot of research that looks at correlations between bad leadership and traits like narcissism. There's a really interesting article in the Journal of Business Ethics, and it explains how narcissists can undertake strategies that are both focused on self-enhancing, so making themselves look good, but also defensive strategies where they devalue others and they're aggressive so that they're always coming out on top. And the researchers found that it's the latter. It's that aggressive, that really defensive traits within narcissism that is more consistently connected to what we call abusive supervision. So abusive supervision is behavior where the person who is in that leadership role demean or make the employee, the person who's working for them, feel devalued. It's not only toxic, it's also contagious. So think about it. When you're working in an environment and you feel happy, you feel valued, you feel like you're getting things done, that rubs off on the people around you. And if you're in a leadership role and you're grumpy, you're hard to work with, you're difficult, you demean others, that behavior rubs off on the people around you. So there's this, what we call a causal effect, where the bad leadership impacts the people, often at peer level, but certainly the levels below them. It's like a trickle-down effect. And researchers from the Kelley School of Business have looked at this, and what they've found is that the best predictor of aversive leadership from the people who are working for that bad boss is the use of threats and intimidation, was that aversive leadership by the person that they were reporting to. So they did a joint study with a couple of other universities, and what they found was that there is a correlation between a middle manager's satisfaction with their senior managers and employee satisfaction with the people that they're reporting to. So this trickle-down effect, it happens all the time. So leaders who treat their team members badly, those team members then often treat the people that work for them badly too. Now, the challenge with all of this, apart from the fact that you're creating a dysfunctional and unhappy place to work, is it impacts productivity. So the US-based National Bureau of Economic Research have looked into this. And this is research that dates back to 2012. And what they found was that replacing a boss who's in the lower 10% of effectiveness with a boss who's in the upper 10% of effectiveness, that actually increases the team's total output. Now, by how much? I hear you say, how much do you wonder? That output increases by more than if you added one additional team member to a 9-person team. And that's huge. Get better leadership, have a better boss, and you get more done. You have a more productive team. So, what are the warning signs that you might be an ineffective leader? I'm going to give you 7. Firstly, you're just not willing to change. You think the traits that got you to where you are now, that's it. But sadly, often the traits that get you to where you are now may not be enough. Also, your context might be changing. And when the context changes, sometimes what's demanded of leaders changes too. Robert Keegan and Lisa Leahy, who are 2 Harvard academics, talk about how often when organizations are trying to change, the organization doesn't actually change. And why? Because the leaders don't think they need to change. They think everyone else needs to change. But if you want change to happen, often the change needs to start with you. Secondly, you see yourself as the smartest person in the room. You know, the downfall of many great companies can be traced to the hubris, the arrogance of the leaders. They've got a fixed mindset. They close themselves off to ideas. They think there's no more that they need to know, that they don't need to listen to others. Good leaders know there's always more to learn. There's always more to understand. 3, surround yourself with sycophants. Sycophants, they're those yes people. And look, it can feel comfortable. It can feel really good to have all these people around you who go, yay, you're brilliant. That's awesome. Let's do this. But sadly, it's not a sustainable way to get progress done. You need people who are going to challenge you. You need people who are going to be curious, who are going to question, who are going to ask those uncomfortable questions. 4th, you impose your ideology on those around you, on the people that report to you. You know, ineffective leaders hold a very narrow view of the world. They view the world in black, white, right, wrong, and they believe themselves as superior. Good leaders don't do that. They recognize that diversity of opinion, diversity of beliefs, that's important. And they create inclusive cultures. Inclusive cultures drive energy, spark creativity, and all of that's needed when you want to innovate. Refuse to hire people smarter than them. Look, we all know the criticality of getting talent, getting the right people into the right roles. However, leaders who are suffering from that, curse where they really don't feel that they're good enough, but they're never going to tell people that they don't feel good enough. They lack self-confidence. And when that happens, they don't want people around them who could be better than them. And yet when you think about it as a leader, it's impossible to be good at everything that is within your remit. You need people who have skills and capability that you don't have. You need them to supplement so that you get that diversity of thought, the diversity of capability, so that you've got a breadth and depth of experience in your team. Now, the next one, if you're the last to hear bad news, it's a sign that there is something going wrong. Because people don't want to tell you. They don't want to tell you what's really going on because they're fearful of how you are going to react. Next, and lastly, when you play favourites with your team members. Look, it's really easy to have people on the team that you find easier to work with than perhaps other people in the team. But when you play favourites, when you're not fair in how you allocate, reward, recognition, resources, people in your team, they see that. It erodes trust and it erodes teamwork. You need to be really transparent in your processes because fairness is a perception issue. So what one person sees as fair, another might see as unfair. But when you're clear, when you're transparent, when you're consistent, it's so much easier for the people around you to see what's fair. So they're my 7 tips of ineffective leadership. You might have some others that you add to the list. But the critical thing at this point is to challenge yourself. Which of those do you fall prey to?